Okay, awesome. Cool. Okay, so Christina and Annie, I believe this is your first lunch and learn. Keely also. Um, but typically we host these conversations once a month. I have stolen the mic from Zach, who usually leads the lunch and learns. I kind of kicked and screamed to do so because Instagram is one of my personal passions lately, I guess. And I really wanted to take the mic. So here I am. Thanks, Zach. So the topic of today's session is really, really specifically and uniquely all about Instagram. So we called it Instagram Masterclass because we want to just dive into all things Instagram. This year at Telomere, we've really taken a headfirst dive into Instagram. Of course, over the last 7, 8 years, we've been on Instagram, and whenever it gets busy or other things take priority, we used to let Instagram take a back seat, but this year we have really focused on prioritizing its growth, as well as using it as a platform for experimenting with what works and what doesn't, so that we can then go away and kind of take our learnings into our consulting practices. So hi, Matt. How are you? So in terms of Instagram currently, with the kind of few studio owners that we do have on live, I'd love for you to share kind of what are your goals, how you're using it now, how you feel about it, just so that we can kind of set the tone with the people we have live. Annie, do you want to go first?
Sure. I also kind of let Instagram take a back seat for a long time. My demographic is fairly older, and we have a pretty active Facebook, like community Facebook group, which is like two-way communication. So we used to focus mostly on Facebook. But within the last year, I have tried to kind of focus more on Instagram actually, because I found like a lot of people moving over in that direction, and then I just use Instagram to kind of cross post. I still do some different types of posting within all three of my things. I have a Facebook page, a Facebook group, and Instagram, and I do different posts in each to kind of keep each a little bit different. But I really have a love-hate relationship with social media. I really, if I didn't have a business, I probably wouldn't even be on social media that much. And so I feel like I have to. I don't feel like I'm that great at it. I do it all myself, and it's hard. That's how I feel about it.
I think a lot of us feel that way, and I always come back to it being at its core really ironic that we're selling self-care, we're selling mindfulness, we're selling a digital detox lifestyle essentially, yet we are condemning ourselves to being online more as a way to get the word out. So it's one of those kind of, I mean, it's really one of those things. And so a large part of the approach that we like to recommend and that we adopt at Telomere with our own social media, or specifically Instagram, is really kind of addressing that element of it, which is that love-hate piece, figuring out kind of what's that sweet spot, what's that bare minimum. I personally like to just be completely offline on the weekends. Otherwise, I would go crazy. And as some of you know, I also have 3 kids. So it kind of forces me offline, which means that it's forced us to be really deliberate with how we trick the algorithm and the strategies that we put out there. Matt and Katie, you guys joined a little, well, you missed my intro where I was kind of saying that you might have noticed that this year alone, we've really doubled down on our Instagram strategy. We've seen tremendous growth. We have been experimenting with different tactics that are allowing us to kind of get a real sense of what works and what doesn't. And the other thing I would say is, as you know, we have an extremely niche audience that we're speaking to. We only want to speak to boutique studio owners. And so when you are faced with a challenge, it can often force you to really like identify the strategy within the strategy as a way to not waste time, because especially in our world where we're working with keywords that can very easily be misconstrued, you know. I'm sure that the yoga studio owners on this call and whoever listens in after the fact, you don't want to necessarily appeal yoga instructors as much as you might want to appeal to uh, individuals wanting to get into yoga. And so just those two segments alone require different strategies, different content, different hashtags. So it's really about making sure that in the time you do, you know, sacrifice to be online, that you are speaking to the people you want to be speaking to and not wasting any time. So in terms of kind of what actually works, now I want to kind of talk high level through the theory that we have been researching and diving into at Telomere, and then coupled with what we've been testing on our end for our own account and seeing what works. So in terms of the actual content itself, of course, you always want to be putting together content that you know will directly speak to the audiences that you're trying to target. And within that, you want to always focus on it being enticing. And enticing is it can look different for different types of people. So the first thing you want to do is just be completely and unapologetically obsessed with your customers. Your customers know that they don't have a lot of time for you, and because they are not face to face with you, they can be ruthless. They will literally just scroll through within 1 to 2 to 3 seconds of whatever content you're putting in front of them. So it is up to you alone to know exactly what they want to be hearing about and when, and being able to just keep pushing through it until you find that right balance. At Telomere, as an example, I was making the mistake of telling people what we did, and I realized that they didn't care that much. They wanted to know the answers to their most burning questions, and then if I managed to get their attention, then they were, you know, proactive enough themselves to take the action of booking an intro call, DMing us, or engaging with us. So you kind of have to be so obsessed with your customer that you know exactly what they're thinking and what they're wanting at any given point in time. Once you kind of get that past that hurdle, then it kind of informs the type of content you can create, and thinking about putting yourselves in their shoes as well. So if you don't, if you feel that you're not necessarily super aligned with your client avatars, then you should try and identify who those people are within your community and ask them lots of questions. So Matt, obviously you're not a young mom because you're a young man. And so if you are trying to target young moms, then you want to find the ones that you know are kind of perfect for who you're trying to target and ask them questions. Hey, where have you been hanging out? What brands do you like? Have you heard of Worry? Do you like them? Are you into, you know, climate change? Do you care about politics? What do you do on the evenings? Do you like Housewives of, I actually don't watch those shows, but you know, just literally getting to know them ins and outs. Are they divorced? Are they married? Who are they dating? Do they like younger guys? Do they like older guys? All the things, because then you can all of a sudden mold your content to speak directly to them. So again, identifying your client is the first step. Then you can create the content that will actually interest them. Don't be afraid to go off topic. We're trying to build a community which is in and of itself defined by things that connect people to common interests, topics, themes, shared experiences. So obviously, you know, within reason, don't feel you need to be so constrained by yoga classes, yoga teachers, and go a little bit more into, mindfulness practices or tips. Like even I was brainstorming content with a sauna and ice bath studio just 2 days ago in person, and we were talking about how dictating the benefits of cold plunge is not as interesting as telling a woman that actually if she cold plunges during her follicular phase, it's the benefits are much higher than any other time in your cycle. So getting down a little bit deeper to speak directly to your audience in a way that is kind of not necessarily focusing only on like what you sell, but the kind of lifestyle around it and the topics that may be of interest to them is going to help you kind of come up with content ideas as well and make it more fun. And that's kind of my next point, which I can like I live to say that you can have fun on Instagram. And lately I've been kind of having so much fun that Allie, who helps me with our Instagram because she's young and cool, is like, don't post so much. And I'm like, no, I can't stop. It's just like coming, like as soon as it clicks, it kind of just like comes out of you. And I think for the studio owners that have Instagram support, or should, Keely, you're kind of the support in this case, but try and lean into or tap into the ideation of it, and then put it all on a list, and then request who's ever helping you with social create that content. So I'm not saying, Annie, that you need to be the one that's creating the reels, but I think unless you have some, or well, working with us, we can give you content ideas. But all that to say, tap into the content first, and then if it's you or not you, whoever is actually on the Instagram, get them to a place where they can have fun with it, because your audience will really feel it. So that then speaks to, not hyper focusing on perfect content, but on timely content, or on content that gets more to the point than is this kind of highly stylized graphic designed piece. So it's all about just getting the message over from me to you. In terms of the actual type of content, you all know reels outperform static posts. We're personally seeing that carousels are often outperforming reels, if not on the same page. Carousels are an incredible way to get information across, fill in the gaps. You can have, as an example, our favorite classes, boom, 4 reels of your 4 classes that you want to showcase. Our top instructors, boom, disrupt a bit in your instructors. Our favorite local smoothies, boom, 4 posts. And the reason why they perform so well is because it by definition forces people to be on the gram for longer. So they're having to like stay on each slide and read it, which means that they're in the app for longer. And that's at the core of everything that we are being kind of like brainwashed into doing. They want us to be on the app for longer. And to get around that, we want to create content that is going to encourage people to stay on it. So video content, video is obviously more appealing and enticing than a static post, which is why video outperforms static posts. Carousels are making us shuffle through. You can now have up to 20 slides, which is huge. And then the kind of biggest element of it, which has nothing to do with actual content, is the engagement side. And that has increased our follower count tremendously also. So engagement speaks to engaging with other posts, other followers, or people that you want to be following. And so that is as simple as having someone, you or anyone else. This is the beauty of being able to outsource engagement, is that it doesn't, the platform doesn't know who it is that's doing it. So you can outsource this. In our case, for instance, Allie is helping. I'm in there a lot, but Allie is helping. Allie, maybe you can kind of talk us through exactly what you do during your engagement minutes? You're muted.
Oh, thank you, Kat. I would have gone on. Yeah, so during engagement, I typically just find a window every single day. It's about 15 to 20 minutes of just commenting on, our ideal client type, our followers, our following, just engaging with their content because they will do the same back, of course. I also like to follow like a new lead, someone that may be of interest to Telomere or that's similar to a studio we work with, and also reaching out to those studios or those specific clients. So shooting them a genuine compliment in their direct messages, just, hey, we saw your studio, we really love it. Not trying to directly sell anything in those messages, but just getting, our foot in the door somewhat. But most of what you'll be doing is kind of just liking stories, interacting, commenting wherever it's applicable. We don't want to be spammy or, salespeople on this app, but just, making ourselves present is very important.
Yeah, thank you. So it really just comes down to the community building side of things. And then in terms of, discovery and using the app as a way for generating leads, just as much as nurturing existing followers, we are still seeing 80% of users discovering local businesses on Instagram. And what that means is that all of the platforms are now super intertwined. You're on Facebook, all of a sudden you're on Instagram. You're on Instagram, all of a sudden you're being prompted to use Threads. We're not there yet, but all this to say that all of these companies are just wanting to track what we do and how, and keep us, shoot us from one place to the next. So often what's happening is even if a lead is finding you on Facebook or through Google search, they are always still also going to your Instagram, which leads me to the next point, which is around making sure that in addition to, encourage this really joyful stream of content that is going out there, that you're putting out, have the foundations in place on your profile. And what I mean by that, we often say, think of it like a storefront concept. Just how your website is a storefront. You've got your about, your services, your pricing, your team, your story. Use the highlights as a way, or even the ability to pin content up there and you want to be doing this, once every 6 months just to make sure that it's refreshed. But make sure you get all of those basics down, because you're going to, it's kind of working in tandem. You have the basics that are static, services, get started. You can have just a series of stories that you save to a highlight, and then it's just there. Services, get started, our classes, our style. And then you can also pin some to the top of your feed. Those are there. And then the content that you're putting out is working to bring people in. It's showing up on their explores, showing up on their feeds. So those people are coming in. They're either coming in through the feed, they're coming in through Google search, they're coming in through Facebook, and then they're going directly to those static elements as a way to understand how to take action. And then they will go to the link in your bio to sign up for your intro, or they'll end up in your mailing list. Boom, email automation, sign up for our intro, or they'll end up on your website, sign up for our intro. One thing that I often see studios missing is the link in their bio to download their app, because that is another way that a lot of people are now just automatically engaging. So they'll go download app, buy the intro there. The language I would use there is download our app for our intro offer. You always want to speak to kind of different language, different options, different action points. Are there any questions? I could go on for, I just want to stop right there and check.
Yeah, you said 80% of people find new businesses through did you mean social or did you include Google in that? Because I thought it was mostly Google.
Just Instagram. So 80% of users on Instagram discover local businesses on that app.
Okay. I thought you just meant in general, 80% of the world finds new businesses through social.
No, it's just the
Okay.
ones that are on the app already. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
So I guess I have like 5 main tips that I'll just run through in a sec, but the really kind of most important part of this all is to have fun with it. Like people now are so evolved in terms of, you know, their digital understanding of the world, even like, you know, the slightly older demographics. Like, you know, I've been analyzing, my mom's been staying with us for the past 3 weeks, and I've been like very obsessed. She thinks I'm a creep, but I've really been analyzing how she uses her phone, like how she searches, how she's on Instagram. She's not on Facebook. I don't think she has a profile, but I've been just trying to understand how she is approaching social search, because she falls into another demographic that is like obviously not mine. And she's already at the point where she can decipher between, you know, a high-end production value video and like a raw, like, all this to say, we're all pretty much at an average understanding of being able to sift through content and realize, okay, the studio's videos might not be like the most slick and polished, but I can tell that it's real and it's good and they're worth going to. So people have enough digital savviness to, I'm not being very like properly expressive today, but all this, what I'm trying to say is, regardless of demographic, people at this point have enough digital tech savviness to identify that a studio is legitimate business and that they are attracting them for what matters: the classes they're selling, the level of instructors, their location. So dropping the polished pitch altogether is what we really need to do now, as a way to really allow the community that you're building in real life to shine through. Thanks, Katie. The thumbs up kind of float to the top, which is cool. Okay, so common mistakes really quick. Posting without strategy, obviously. So I see a lot of posting for posting's sake. One of my new hobbies, which is going to make me sound so lame, but again, when I'm talking about being obsessive about Instagram, I kind of mean it. I'll go on like the studio accounts that Allie will follow or that we'll engage with, because they kind of pop up in our feed because we're both in there. And I like to check how many of their posts I would archive if I was working with them. And usually it's like all of them. I'm like, hey, I don't actually like, so all this to say, posting for posting's sake is like, you know, 2020. So 2020. I think it's cool to post about an event and not necessarily archive it, because if it's an event or a workshop that really speaks to what you do and what you recommend and what's important to your studio, then it'll just showcase the breadth of offerings that you have. You know, if there's a motivational quote that like really speaks to your values, maybe, but now people just want to see people. They want to see people, you know, doing real things in real time. They want to hear stories. They want to hear transformation stories. They want people to get vulnerable. They want the owner to show their face. They want the owner to tell us their story. They want the owner to be the guide. And every community kind of does need to have a guide, whether it's one or multiple. But if you think about the more kind of stripped down definition of community, it's a group of people that are often being led by either certain principles or core values or, you know, a chief. And so just thinking back to that, it's like, okay, what's funny? What's fun? I've I've seen an Instagram account, and I can share some really great Instagram account examples with you all after if that would be helpful. But one thing that I've loved seeing that really cracked me up was a studio owner reading out negative reviews, or a studio owner, you know, having a conversation, you know, it doesn't have to be long, but having a conversation with someone that's new, and a lot of these can be a little bit staged if it makes sense, but really taking the output of your surveys and turning that into content is a good place to start. Focusing on follower count over engagement. So this is something that, like, literally over the past 10 years, I've been telling studio owners, your studio is not, you don't want to compare your studio to an influencer account. You want to think of your studio as being a local business. Now, sure, there are studios out there, especially multi-locations or franchises, or studios doing something very unique that have, you know, tens of thousands of followers. But they have either been doing this for years, they've hired influencers to run their accounts, or they have really cool, sassy products, but their numbers suck, and I can vouch, I confirm. I have worked with studios that have 10, 15, 20K followers, and they are running at zero profit. So when we talk about vanity metrics, we're talking about a shiny number that literally means nothing. And that is not what you should be chasing. You should be chasing engagement. Ignoring stories completely. So I would rather you post on stories than on the feed, because people are watching stories more than they are watching the feed. Not showcasing transformation stories. As an example, and like, we are guilty as charged because we, you know, have a lot of content that we like to talk about and put out. But we recently posted a case study of one of our wonderful clients that, Keely is here. We put, Keely works for Rebel Ride, which is the case study we recently posted, and it outperformed, you know, my last 20 videos. And it was a case study, which in our case is our version of a transformation story. It was a carousel, and it just goes to show that the mark we're missing, and this is probably like the wisest thing I'm going to say this entire month, is that we are not leaning into storytelling enough as a way to market our studios. And storytelling is what's going to connect your audience with your purpose. And then lastly, common mistake studio owners make is not using local hashtags effectively. So, you know, captions now, good SEO captions are better than hashtags. So having detailed captions is good because it's longer form. It's feeding the AI bots, the large language models, the followers. So you want to have more detailed captions where appropriate, where you slip in all your SEO keywords. Having your hashtag be more like second line of defense, so to speak, having kind of 3 to 5 very specific hashtags. So, but you want to, so like, think about hashtags as being important, but not as important as your captions. But you still want to use them. And for studios, you'll want to use hashtags that are specific to your location. So I would always put, like, you know, San Diego yoga studio, that kind of thing. Some people there's rumor going around that hashtags are going to die soon, and agencies torn on whether or not they actually do anything. I feel for Telomere, they don't do anything. Hopefully Instagram's not hearing, but not listening. But that's only because it's I don't believe that our leads are searching the hashtags that would make sense for us to post. So like, Annie, I doubt that you would have searched in the tags like boutique studio owners and found us. So but for you, for studio owners, a lot of people are searching yoga near me. So if you don't feel super comfortable with your SEO words, that's a great topic for your next call with your consultant. Okay, I have main tips, but let's just stop and see if anyone has any questions, or if any Telmere people want to add anything.
Kat, I'd love to talk a little bit more about engagement, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so I teach as well outside of Telmere, and obviously not all your teachers are going to want to be active on social media, and that's okay. But I've noticed that just going through my studios, following followers who, is a member, and just spamming that following all of my riders, my students, and then DMing them, engaging with them, has made a really good launch pad for in-studio interaction. So I kind of have this goal to, okay, I'm going to touch every bike before I start class, so I can touch on every client and speak to them. And having that information from them on Instagram, oh, I saw you went to this concert last weekend, or I saw you have family in town, where are you from? It's really helped with that community building, like Kat said, and it's more of a tool to get them back in the studio and build a really strong relationship with them. So, there is conversation around it being like a necessary evil in the fitness world, but again, it shows you who they are outside of the studio, and that's really important information, and it can help inform what goes on in your rooms. So, if you do have instructors who are active on socials, I would highly encourage them to follow, DM, if they have a really good class, tag everyone that was in that class on their story and be like, we killed it this morning. There is definitely a lot of value in that as well.
Totally. And not everyone is a star instructor like you, because that's really going above and beyond. But that's a great example. And it also is free. Like, there are very expensive tools out there that help your instructors or teachers connect with their students, but they cost, $400 or $500 a month. So if that, and what Ali just, Ali's going above and beyond because she's a star student across the board. But if your instructors are, if it's something that could help your community and your engagement, you could, consider saying to your instructors, hey, if you're open to doing this, I'll,
increase your pay rate.
Whatever, yeah, increase, or it's a little bit hard to track, but yeah.
Kat, I have something that has come up quite a bit lately that I just wanted you to address. So studio owners are asking how often they should have someone come in and capture content, like video and photos and things. Like, what would be kind of the minimum? And then, because this is where a lot of budget is going, and I know, Matt, this is what we talked about.
Okay, so that's a good question. I think depending on your resources, I like a professional photo shoot. Like if money weren't a thing,
Yeah.
A professional photo shoot once every 3 months. I think it captures like seasonal colors, seasonal vibes, and if you have a good photo shoot with a very strong shot list ahead of time, you can definitely repurpose one professional shoot per quarter. It also allows you to mix in organic content that you're shooting in studio, throughout. I would say that the majority of the studios that are doing really well on Instagram, they don't have the need to have those professional photo shoots necessarily. You can get by on Instagram specifically with just someone that knows how to navigate social and use their phone. Especially if you have a good phone, it takes really high quality content. You just need to invest in a few of the little gadgets like ring lights and the little Octo Buddies, which you can see I have one here, and it like allows you to stick this to mirrors and walls. And then I specifically invested in getting like a a newer phone so that I have the front camera, the back camera, and the front camera is like just as strong. Keely, are you raising your hand? No. Okay. So a professional photo shoot, ideally you're doubling down with video shoot at this on the same day. Usually a photographer and a videographer come hand in hand. So you can do a walkthrough, a full class, some close-ups, some shots. Having a shot list is a non-negotiable beforehand. Otherwise, I find that it just is like you're shooting in the dark. As if you know your photographer and you like the photographer, then even better. And then having a content creator come in once a month, once every 6 weeks to just get some extra content, gather some extra content for reels. And it literally can, it kind of has to be a little bit all the time because you're wanting to capture the essence of what's going on. They could do, they could come one day every 2 weeks on a very busy day, but it's kind of, I prefer to teach studio managers or a front desk person that's savvy how to use it, how to gather content and then upload it to a shared album versus like having to call someone in. But that's only because of the nature of, people coming in and out. Like some of our best content we've seen is people capturing those conversations outside of class, or people coming into class and getting signed in with a warm smile and a wave, like all these little moments that are, they're easy to stage, but they're hard to get many of if you're only doing it once. Does that answer the question? We have shot lists, Matt, as well available if you want.
But what about the frequency of new video postings and carousel creation? Is it like 2 or 3 a week?
Oh, in terms of actually posting, I don't have a specific cadence anymore that I recommend because, and this might not be helpful, but it's because I've just resorted to posting like intuitively. I definitely see and it's also because the way that Instagram shows your content, it's, you can go into your app and see when the majority of your users are active, but it doesn't necessarily mean that when an avid follower opens the app, your content won't appear first. But as a kind of minimum guideline, I would say that you want to post, have a little bit of everything. 1 carousel a week, 1 or 2 videos a week, and then ideally 1 or 2 stories a day. And then engagement is really the constant. So I would rather you post like 2 things on your feed a week and have stories every day and engagement every day than the other way around. I know of people that are analyzing Instagram. We follow lots of their blogs and their journeys, and they basically don't post on the feed at all. Like that's a strategy too. Only stories. And all the Gen Zers, like my little brother who has tons of followers, has no posts. I know it's not a comparison.
Yeah, and also then it's who is your target audience. So Matt,
Yes.
your client avatars are not the Gen Zers. So like that is something we want to keep in mind as well.
But all that to say, people are not really scrolling that much down. They're staying towards the top. So the stories mean that you can save them to the highlight covers and the highlights, and then they can kind of be up to date there. But once a week for all the different content types is good.
Were you saying we should archive more? Is that one of the mistakes you said that studios make? They don't archive enough?
No, it's more that they've posted content that is not helpful, not helpful or supporting their case or making them interesting.
Okay.
So archiving is just, instead of deleting, you would just remove it. It's just another option.
Do you find like another mistake studios make, and we do this, is we just post about events and membership specials and like maybe a new teacher interview versus things that are more enticing, like you said, to the audience?
I think you want a mix, but
Yeah.
posting that stuff on stories is important.
Okay.
And I think a lot of it depends on like how timely it is. For instance, if you're doing a sale that's a week long or 2 weeks long or even 3 days long, you might want to post it on the feed. But if you are telling people about your schedule that day or saying that there's a spot available in the 7 p.m. class, that's a story. I see a lot of weekly schedules being posted on feeds, and it's like, this is old news, literally. So I think if it has a deadline, if it's at least 3 days, then it could go in. If it's at least 3 days, it could go in your feed. And if it's any less than that, it's for your stories.
Yeah. Kat, I'd like to add, I feel like, and of course, please give me your opinion on this as well. I feel like the stories don't have to be as polished. It's more about being consistent. Like it can be a video of you, hey, this is the day in my life at the studio, and just like clips of your day, of classes, of what you're working on. It doesn't have to be some kind of groundbreaking content. It's more about just being consistent and like showing the real side of the work you do.
Totally. And I was just going to say I think, aside from, and like, it's a bit of an awkward thing to say because it's me saying it, but I do think that some of the reasons why part of the reason why our Instagram account has grown so much is, yes, we're aligning our content more with what our followers want to hear, but also I'm just getting out there and speaking, which is, equal parts terrifying and exciting. But I think to the point of like a studio owner, I'm seeing just posting, hey, everybody, the 8 p.m. is canceled because there's a snowstorm, is way more effective and engaging than posting a story of the flat version. And it actually takes way less time. But then for your instructors, giving them some resources to encourage them to post more stories, for instance, like a template of a schedule that they can then just fill in their classes and repost is more likely to have them create stories that tag your studio. So yeah, getting out there. We sent out an email recently that had a few story prompts in there that is intended to get people really excited about putting their face on Instagram. Matt, maybe, or
how do you get over that? I just don't want to do it. You just got to do it, right?
Just got to do it. Yeah, you have to do it and then not watch it.
Yeah. Our top ranked whatever had the most likes. One we did this year was of me and another co-founder just doing like, why did we start the yoga studio? And I was like, really? Like, I didn't think people cared at all, but I guess they do.
They love it.
Yeah.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
I find because I've been up and down with my relationship to social media, and during COVID I almost got canceled several times. So I took a huge step back, and it's just been a process getting my face back out there. But and not for anything crazy that I said or did, but just people were so sensitive during that time. But I found a hack for me, if you want to call it that, is as soon as I'm finished teaching a class or after I've engaged with like a group of people or just something that's really brought my energy up and I've been like making a lot of facial expressions and everything, the minute that last person walks out of the room, I go live and I just talk to the camera, and it's so much easier than if you're just sitting, in a quiet room by yourself and you're trying to like get ready for the big moment. And So that has really worked well for me to just be in an extroverted state already and just let it segue into some kind of like live or I didn't hear you mention lives, Catalina. Is that something that is that the same as a real? I don't even know. No, it's not.
No, I haven't really done a live since like COVID. I don't know why. Allie, maybe we should experiment with that, but I've just been doing reels. I don't you can save a live. I mean, I have lots of lives in there from COVID, but I don't know why they've just fallen off the radar. And I think a lot of it does come down to just being consistent and the app knowing that you're in there.
So with your stories that you had posted today, those were, how did you record those? I know this is like tech 101, but
no, all good. I mean, so now the way that the app works is, okay, here we go. This is not ideal, but here's the app, right?
Okay.
So the plus sign at the bottom, it gives you these 4 options: post, story, reel, or live. So if you click on story, it gives you the option to
record
the story. One thing I do is I select hands free.
Okay.
And so then when you don't have to hold the button down. So then when you're recording, you can just be talking to it. And then, do you see what I mean? And then
and it'll just,
and then it's just a story.
Got it.
And then same with the reels. Reel, you can turn stories into reels, but I just do reels separately. So it's just a different like setting in there, but I just do it in there. And then I always make captions in case people listen to it with no volume, or because it's also a little more inclusive.
Right.
But it is definitely like ripping off the Band-Aid. I mean, now I have no shame. Like I used to just overthink so much what I said, and then now I'm just talking nonsense all day.
Well, it's funny, the more you watch these people do it, even the influencers, you realize it's just like, it's not even what they're saying, it's how they say it, and it's the whole, you know what I mean?
Totally. Well, a lot of that, yeah, a lot of that is,
nonsense.
yes. And it's funny, I went to a studio opening a couple months ago, and it was for press and influencers, and it was like 20 influencers and me, and the influencers were all much younger, so I felt so old, and they were all so young and so digitally savvy. I learned so much just from like where to put my phone and everything. And it was so surreal and awkward to be in a room with people that were existing in the room for the online purpose. So everything was so, little, like, it was just so kind of strange. And then I watched them and I was like, oh, this content is amazing. It flows. It's so good. So there is kind of this gap between reality and how you film reality so that it translates to digital. But we don't that kind of speaks to my point on like everybody can kind of appreciate what it is you're trying to do. It's not worth trying to bridge the gap. That is what's going to be the difference between loving and hating Instagram. And at this point in our lives, well, maybe not Keely and Allie, but at this point in like most of our lives, it's not worth like what we can just put out there organically is more than enough. Yeah.
It just seems like authenticity is key, and whether you do it in real time or via video, whatever, it's not such an evil empire, even though, Zuckerberg, I just hate Zuckerberg, but whatever.
Exactly.
But whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Well, if it helps, I think it's about finding the right balance, like with everything.
Yeah.
And to your point, authenticity and just being yourself and finding a way to make it consistent.
Can I ask the other studio owners, Katie? I don't know if you're an owner. Sorry, I wasn't here earlier, but how much do you spend on like between photo shoots and people that post or edit video?
So my studio manager happens to be really great at social media. I'm like, I'm going to send her the recording of this whole lunch and learn, because there's always like places to grow, right? And things are always changing. But she really enjoys doing it. So, but for photos, so we have a big open house every January, and I have a friend who's a professional like videographer, and so he gives me a deal. It's still expensive, but it's a deal, and he shoots like tons of content at that open house. He'll get people separate and ask them certain questions and like try to capture different moments, and he'll bring a photographer, and so that will give us, as long as it doesn't look too wintry or seasonal, it does give us content to use for the entire year. Most recently, we did our teacher portraits. There's an energy exchanger that couldn't like do her cleaning shift anymore, but she's like a budding photographer. So we let her do that as a way of doing energy exchange and gave her like a 6-month membership. And she took photos of all of our staff. Are they the best photos ever? No, but at least they're uniform. The lighting is decent, and it does make our like staff page look more polished.
Professional.
Yeah, I mean, I think whenever you can find a way to trade or barter or something, that can be really helpful.
The other thing
And
is you can use all that content for your website. I just
yeah,
created a
Yes.
blog section on our website, and the blog obviously has, static posts, but I want to put videos and potentially at some point podcasts in there.
cool.
Cool. Well, to get more bang for your buck from your shoots, you definitely want to have people wearing, select a very diverse crowd that really represents your demographic. Have them ideally wearing brand colors, no patterns, and then just like a very clean aesthetic that will kind of be timeless. I mean, I'm still finding that the photos that we have taken 2-3 years ago still work for a lot of our material. So it's really just being more, deliberate with how you curate the people, the colors, the shots.
Catalina, can I just ask you two quick questions? I'd love to know the value of like running contests on social media, because we definitely don't do much of that at all. But I see everyone else doing it. And secondly, I was going to ask you, so I noticed Power Yoga, that's a chain, and they do a great job at fostering community, and like they're really like rah, and it's really great, their whole vibe, and I love them. But I was really surprised. They sent out an email recently that said, update or leave a positive Google review, and you'll be entered in a draw to win a 6-month membership. And I was like, wow, that's a really big prize to offer for just reviews. Like, do you think Google reviews are that valuable?
Yeah, I mean, it is okay. So to answer your first question on challenges
Or contests or whatever,
or
yeah.
contests, yeah. So it really depends on your community and your studio. I think they work really well when you team up with a local business. So then you're also accessing their audience. So it could be like tag both of us, follow both of us, tag a friend, and enter to win. That way you're kind of doubling up on your reach. Depending on what your objective is, it can be really successful.
Okay.
So it's definitely worth trying. It depends on how engaged your followers are. It doesn't, your followers not being too engaged outright does not mean that they're not engaged at all. So, I'm seeing a lot of people will comment on certain videos, but to me personally, but they won't actually leave comments in the caption. So it's kind of deciphering between the impact of your content versus what you're actually seeing the metric as coming through on the metric side. So I would definitely try a challenge if it's a low cost option to see how it works. If it
Okay.
doesn't work well the first time, it may not be that it won't work at all, but just that you have to adjust some of the parameters. In terms of the Google reviews, yes, it's becoming a much more sought after concept because it is becoming a large driver of the search engine optimization like criteria, especially as Google is relying more on AI. It's pulling from whatever it finds on the internet, and a Google review is a static piece of information on the internet. So if I search what are the best yoga studios near me, Google is relying on Google reviews just as much as geolocation, because it's more likely to take positive reviews into consideration.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, well, hopefully that was helpful, everybody.
That's awesome.
Thanks. I was trying to kind of use my own journey with it for telomere as an example, but of course there are certain things that don't apply. If you have any more questions that on Instagram that are specific to your studio, obviously let your consultant know, and they can, I'm sure, have the answer or pull in Allie if need be to get more specific.
Can you send us that just like 2 or 3 suggested yoga studios that are doing it really well, in your opinion? Obviously, you're doing a great job
for
too.
you, thank you. One of our great studios, Rare Studios.
Rare.
They're not with us because they're in Australia. Shout out to Rare, but they're doing an amazing job on social. Miranda, maybe you can send it to Matt.
Yep.
But yes, I will send a few others. Othership is another one that is doing the negative Google reviews that I think is quite funny. And they also have a lot of great content, note from our founder, message from, like, a lot of fun stuff. But yes, I'll put together a list. There was another thing I wanted to send out afterwards, but
Are we able to get a recording of this? Is that like
Yes.
common practice? Yeah, that's okay. Thank you. That would be awesome.
Yes. We'll make sure everybody gets it, and we'll send out the recording along with there's something else I thought to send out. I'll check the transcript and then we'll get that out to everybody.
Great.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Cool.
Thank
Glad it was
you.
helpful. Talk to you soon, everybody.
Thank you.
you.
Bye.
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 I got slay. Okay, bye, queen.